Imagine being in a relationship where you always come second, even to your partner's family. What would you do? Sarah had always been patient with Jake. For 2 years, their relationship had been good, at least on the surface. Weekends were filled with date nights, cozy evenings watching Netflix, and spontaneous day trips. But one thing always got in the way: Jake's family. At first, it seemed harmless. Jake's mom would call him during their dates, and he'd always answer. Sarah thought it was sweet that he was so close to his mom, but it became an issue when those calls happened constantly. It didn't matter if they were in the middle of a movie or enjoying dinner. His mom always came first, not just his mom, his sister, his dad, his cousins. Jake's family became the invisible third wheel in their relationship. It started to weigh on Sarah. She tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. Family dinners were mandatory every Sunday, no matter how tired Sarah was or how much she wanted a quiet weekend. At these dinners, she often felt like an outsider, a guest at their family table. Jake never seemed to notice, never bothered to ask if she was okay with it. Things finally hit a breaking point 2 weeks before a wedding they had both been invited to. Sarah had been looking forward to the event for months. It was a chance for them to dress up, have fun, and maybe, just for once, enjoy an evening together without interruptions. But that dream was shattered when Jake's sister called and dropped a bombshell. "Hey, Sarah. I was wondering if you could do me a favor," she had asked sweetly. "I was thinking, how about I go to the wedding with Jake instead? You wouldn't mind, right?" Sarah was stunned. Why would Jake's sister even suggest something like that? She thought it was a joke at first, but Jake's sister was serious. Sarah brushed it off, thinking Jake would immediately shut down the idea. But when she brought it up to him, he simply shrugged. "Well, family comes first, always. You know how it is," Jake said casually, as if it were no big deal. Sarah was crushed. She had spent 2 years standing on the sidelines while Jake's family took center stage, and now it felt like she didn't even matter to him. She was always second best, never a priority in his life, and Jake didn't even see the problem. For the next few days, Sarah couldn't stop thinking about it. She replayed every moment, every time Jake had chosen his family over her, every time she had been overlooked. She loved Jake, but how could she keep going like this? Could she spend the rest of her life with someone who would never put her first? Finally, she decided to confront him. Her heart raced as she sat him down in their living room. "Jake, I need to talk to you about something serious," she began, trying to keep her voice steady. "I can't keep doing this. I can't be in a relationship where I'm always second best. It's like I don't even matter to you when your family is involved." Jake looked at her, confused. "Sarah, what are you talking about? You know how important my family is to me. They'll always be a part of my life. I don't see what the big deal is." That was the moment Sarah knew nothing would change. No matter how much she loved Jake, she would always be second to his family. She realized she deserved more. With tears in her eyes, Sarah made the hardest decision of her life. "I'm sorry, Jake. I love you, but I can't keep doing this. I need to be someone's priority, and it's clear that I'll never be yours." Jake sat in stunned silence as Sarah grabbed her things and walked out of his apartment. She didn't look back. It was painful, but deep down, Sarah knew she had made the right decision.
Imagine thinking you're inheriting your father's fortune, only to find out it's going to someone you've never even heard of. Lauren sat nervously in the lawyer's office, surrounded by her siblings and her mother. The room was heavy with tension. After years of waiting, the day had finally come, the reading of her father's will. Her father had passed away 3 months earlier, and ever since, the family had been in a strange limbo, unsure of what was to come. Lauren's father had always been a proud and successful man, running his own business and amassing a small fortune. His estate was worth millions, and the family had always assumed it would be divided equally among his children. As the lawyer opened the will and began to read, Lauren's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't thinking about the money. She was thinking about the memories of her father, the man who had raised her and taught her everything she knew. But as the lawyer continued, something strange happened. The will didn't leave the fortune to Lauren or her siblings. Instead, it named a stranger, a man none of them had ever heard of. "John," the lawyer read aloud, "the estate will be left to John Matthews." A stunned silence fell over the room. Who was John Matthews? Lauren's mother gasped, her face turning pale. Lauren and her siblings exchanged confused looks. They had no idea who this man was or why their father would leave everything to him. Lauren's mother broke down in tears, and the room erupted into chaos. Her siblings started shouting, demanding answers. The lawyer calmly explained that John Matthews was the sole heir to the estate, and there was nothing they could do about it. Lauren felt a mixture of shock, betrayal, and confusion. Who was this man, and why had her father kept him a secret? Determined to find out the truth, Lauren began her own investigation. She tracked down John Matthews, and after weeks of searching, she finally found him. When Lauren confronted John, she was shocked to discover that he wasn't just some stranger. He was her father's secret son. Her father had lived a double life for years, maintaining a second family that none of them had ever known about. John was the product of that relationship, and their father had left everything to him. Lauren's world crumbled. Everything she thought she knew about her father was a lie. Her family was devastated, and they struggled to come to terms with the truth. Lauren's father had chosen to keep his secret life hidden, and now they were left to pick up the pieces. How would you feel if you discovered your partner lied about their entire life? This is what happened to Emily. For 2 years, Emily had believed she was in the perfect relationship. Mark was everything she had ever wanted: charming, successful, and thoughtful. They spent every weekend together, and Mark always seemed to know how to make Emily feel special. But one day, everything changed. It all started when Emily received an anonymous message on social media. She was just scrolling through her feed, minding her own business, when her phone buzzed with a notification that caught her off guard. "Mark isn't who you think he is," the message read. The words seemed to jump off the screen, sending a chill down her spine. At first, Emily brushed it off. She thought it was just a prank or someone trying to mess with her. It was probably just someone trying to cause trouble. She had seen this kind of thing before, and it usually amounted to nothing. But something about the message nagged at her. The more she tried to ignore it, the more it seemed to linger in her mind. What if there was some truth to it? What if Mark really wasn't who he claimed to be? The questions began to swirl in her head, making it impossible to focus on anything else. Curiosity got the better of her, and Emily started to do some digging. She went through Mark's social media profiles, checked his work history, and even asked a few of their mutual friends if they knew anything strange about him. What she discovered left her speechless. Emily had always trusted Mark, believing in the life they were building together. But now, everything seemed like a cruel joke. Mark had been lying to her about nearly everything. The man she thought she knew was a complete stranger. Their arguments had always seemed trivial, but now she realized they were rooted in his deceit. He wasn't the successful businessman he claimed to be. Instead, he had been living a double life, hiding his true circumstances from her. In fact, he had been unemployed for most of their relationship. The bills piling up, the constant stress, everything made sense now. He had been pretending to go to work, but in reality, he was jobless. He wasn't living alone either. He was still living with his ex-girlfriend in a shared apartment. Emily was devastated. The betrayal cut deep, knowing he had been sharing his life with someone else all along. How could Mark have lied to her for so long? The web of lies he had spun was intricate and cruel. She felt foolish for not seeing through his facade. How had she not seen the signs? Looking back, there were subtle hints, moments that didn't add up, but love had blinded her to the truth. Now, she had to pick up the pieces and move forward. When Emily confronted Mark, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. The room was filled with tension, and the air seemed thick with unspoken words. Emily's voice trembled as she demanded answers. He tried to deny everything at first, his face a mask of nervousness. Mark's voice wavered as he attempted to brush off her accusations, but his eyes betrayed his anxiety. But as she presented him with the evidence, meticulously gathered over weeks, his facade began to crumble. The documents laid bare the truth he had tried so hard to conceal. Mark's lies began to unravel, each one more damning than the last. He looked defeated, guilt etched across his face as he realized there was no escaping the truth. He had been leading a double life, a web of deceit spun so intricately that even he had trouble keeping track of his own lies. Pretending to be someone he wasn't, Mark had crafted an alternate reality, one where he could escape the responsibilities and commitments of his real life, all while keeping secrets from Emily, secrets that now lay bare between them, shattering the trust she had once placed in him. Heartbroken, Emily packed her things, each item a painful reminder of the life they had built together. She moved with a sense of finality, knowing there was no turning back, and walked away from the relationship, her steps heavy with sorrow but resolute. She knew she deserved better than a life built on lies. She couldn't believe she had trusted someone so completely, only to be betrayed in the most profound way, who had deceived her so completely. Tears welled up in her eyes as she faced the reality of her heartbreak. But she knew she had to move forward, leaving the past behind. What would you do if you found out your partner had been lying the whole time? Let me know in the comments and follow for more real-life stories. Imagine waiting at the altar for your soon-to-be husband, only to find out he's already gone. The white dress feels heavy, a symbol of a future that will never be. Lily stood at the entrance to the aisle, a vision in lace and pearls. Her heart beat a joyful rhythm. She was moments away from forever, from Daniel. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting the scene in vibrant hues. Flowers lined the pews, their perfume mingling with the joyous anticipation in the air. Her bouquet trembled in her hands, a cascade of white roses mirroring the flurry of emotions within her. All eyes were on her, their smiles a reflection of her own happiness. But where was he? A tiny seed of doubt sprouted in her heart. Why hadn't the music started? She searched for him, her gaze sweeping over the expectant faces. Her smile wavered, a flicker of unease replacing the radiant joy. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity. The silence grew, filled only with the frantic thumping of her heart. Lily's joy began to curdle, a sour taste rising in her throat. This wasn't right. He should be here. The whispers began subtly, like the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. Guests exchanged puzzled glances, their smiles fading into expressions of concern. Lily's father, a pillar of strength beside her, stiffened, his hand tightening on hers. "Don't worry, darling," he whispered, his voice strained. "Maybe there's been a misunderstanding." But his words rang hollow, even to her ears. A knot of dread tightened in her stomach. Lily clung to his words, a lifeline in the sea of doubt that threatened to engulf her. Minutes ticked by, each one an excruciating measure of hope and despair. The air grew thick with tension, the silence deafening. Someone gasped. Heads turned, murmurs rippling through the crowd. Lily's breath hitched. She saw it too. The best man approached, his face etched with a grim expression that confirmed her worst fears. He wasn't coming. Daniel was gone. The words slammed into her, a physical blow that stole her breath and shattered her world. The bouquet slipped from her numb fingers, the white roses scattering like fallen tears. The world around her dissolved into a blur of shocked faces and hushed whispers. She barely registered her father's comforting embrace, the concerned murmurs of her loved ones washing over her in meaningless waves. There was only the gaping hole in her heart, the raw, agonizing ache of betrayal. How could he do this? Why? The questions echoed in the vast emptiness within her, each one a fresh stab of pain. The life they had built together, the dreams they had shared, all reduced to rubble in the space of a heartbeat. The church, once a sanctuary of hope and promise, now felt like a tomb. The air, thick with the scent of lilies and unspoken apologies, was suffocating. Lily stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a sob. Section 4. Picking up the pieces. The days that followed were a blur of grief and disbelief. The condolences, the pitying looks, the endless questions, all served as painful reminders of what she had lost. There were nights spent drowning her sorrow in tears, the silk sheets of her empty bed offering little comfort. But even in the depths of her despair, a flicker of defiance began to burn. She would not let this break her. She would not let his cowardice define her. Slowly, painstakingly, Lily began to pick up the pieces of her shattered heart. She sought solace in the love of her family and friends, their unwavering support a beacon in the darkness. She poured her pain into painting, her canvases becoming a tapestry of her emotions. Each stroke was a cathartic release, a step towards healing. Lily started to see glimmers of her old self in the vibrant colors and bold strokes. Section 5. A New Dawn. It was a gradual process, this journey of healing and self-discovery. There were setbacks, moments of crippling doubt, and the ever-present ache of what could have been. But Lily persevered. She learned to embrace the unknown, to find strength in her vulnerability, and to love herself unconditionally. The woman who emerged from the wreckage was not the same one who had stood trembling at the altar. She was stronger, fiercer, and more determined than ever to live a life filled with purpose and authenticity. She traveled, explored new passions, and reconnected with old dreams. Lily discovered a strength she never knew she possessed, a resilience forged in the fires of heartbreak. The pain never fully disappeared, but it no longer held her captive. It had become a part of her story, a reminder of her capacity to love, to hurt, and to rise again, stronger and more beautiful than before. The sun rose each morning, painting the sky with the promise of a new dawn, and Lily greeted it with open arms and a heart ready to embrace all that life had to offer.